Before you call Thanos a monster, listen, because the story you think you know is only the final chapter of a tragedy that began long before the snap. Thanos wasn't born evil. He was born in the ruins of a dying world, shaped by denial, forged by loss, and driven by a vision no one else had the courage to see. This is the full truth. The childhood they hid, the warnings they mocked, the pain he carried, and the destiny he built with his own hands. Today, I'm revealing the entire backstory of Thanos, the one that changes everything. Before we begin, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, because the truth about Thanos will change everything you thought you knew. Titan, a world so advanced, so elegant, so breathtakingly proud of its own brilliance that it believed destruction was something that only happened to lesser civilizations. Towers of silver cutting through clouds, cities powered by limitless energy, academies that bred minds capable of reshaping entire ecosystems. Titan was the crown jewel of the cosmos. And yet, beneath all that perfection, something rotten lived in the hearts of its people: arrogance. They believed they were untouchable, eternal, above consequence. It was in this shining paradise that Thanos was born. And from the moment he opened his unusual, haunting eyes, Titan realized something had entered their perfect world that did not belong to it. The deviant syndrome twisted his body from birth, turning his skin a strange shade and shaping him into something the Titan elite whispered about with discomfort and fear. He was not the beautiful ideal Titan celebrated. He was a living reminder of imperfection, a flaw in their flawless civilization. His birth was not met with celebration. It was met with silence, confusion, and the kind of judgment that scars deeper than any wound. Before Thanos even spoke his first word, Titan had already made up its mind. He was different. And different was dangerous. Thanos' childhood was not simply difficult. It was an experience carved from isolation. While other children ran through Titan's gleaming gardens, laughing under the artificial sun, Thanos walked alone. He wasn't bullied. That would require someone to come close. Instead, he was avoided, feared, treated like a dark omen wandering through a world of light. Even his own mother, Suisan, could not accept him. The moment she looked into his eyes, something inside her fractured. To her, this child wasn't a gift. He was a warning. Imagine growing up in a civilization that worships perfection while treating you like evidence that something has gone wrong. That was Thanos' reality. He watched families gather, students learn together, leaders speak of unity, all from the outside, all from behind the invisible barrier that separated him from everyone else. So he turned inward. He studied. He questioned. He searched for answers that no other Titan bothered to explore. Why do civilizations fall? Why does life consume itself? Why do people cling to hopes that crumble under the weight of reality? These weren't the thoughts of a child. They were the beginnings of a philosophy that would shape the destiny of galaxies. In loneliness, Thanos found clarity. In rejection, he found purpose. And in silence, he began forming the ideas that would one day shake the universe. As Thanos grew, so did the hunger inside him. Not for power, not for recognition, but for understanding. While Titan celebrated art, philosophy, and scientific grandeur, Thanos studied the shadows beneath that brilliance. He spent days inside archives, nights inside abandoned observatories, and entire seasons mapping population curves, energy consumption, and the inevitable trajectory of a society that refused to accept limits. And then he saw it, the mathematical certainty that Titan was on a collision course with annihilation. Their population was rising far faster than their resources could sustain. Their leaders preached abundance, but Thanos saw only the tightening noose of scarcity. He presented his findings to the High Council, not with fear, but with clarity. He begged them to consider radical measures: controlled population reduction, strict resource allocation, systematic balance. For a brief moment, the room fell silent. Then came the laughter. His warnings were dismissed as madness, his calculations called paranoid hallucinations. The council didn't just reject his ideas, they mocked them. They labeled him a danger to morale, a poison to Titan's optimism. And with every insult, every scoff, every arrogant dismissal, Thanos' isolation deepened. Genius had shown him the truth, but genius, on Titan, was treated as heresy. The end didn't arrive suddenly. It crept toward Titan like a slow infection, invisible at first, then undeniable. Crops began to fail. Atmospheric stabilizers weakened. Entire sectors reported shortages. The perfect world that once shined like a beacon now trembled under the weight of reality. And Thanos watched. Not with joy, not with vengeance, but with the crushing certainty of a man witnessing the very future he tried desperately to prevent. Panic spread faster than any disease. Cities once filled with celebration turned into battlegrounds for scraps of food. Thousands starved. Millions fled into space, only to die in the cold vacuum or return to rubble. Families that once rejected Thanos now cried out to leaders who had no answers left. Titan collapsed under its own arrogance, exactly as Thanos predicted. He wandered through the ruins of the home that had rejected him, stepping over empty streets, listening to the silence left behind by a civilization that believed itself immortal. The council members who mocked him? Gone? The scholars who called him insane? Ashes. This moment didn't just scar Thanos, it transformed him. Titan's death became the defining proof of his philosophy. Life left unchecked destroys itself. Balance isn't cruelty, it is mercy. And from that day forward, Thanos vowed never to let another world suffer the fate Titan chose for itself. Titan's destruction didn't harden Thanos into a monster overnight. It clarified him. As he stood among the ruins of the world he loved, he realized something most beings never dare to confront. Life is both beautiful and self-destructive, endlessly expanding until it consumes everything around it. To Thanos, the universe wasn't evil, it was unbalanced. And imbalance, left unchecked, always ends in suffering. So he shaped a philosophy built on a single, brutal truth. Mercy sometimes requires sacrifice. In his mind, destruction wasn't cruelty. It was the only path to preservation. He believed that by removing half, he could save the whole. By cutting away excess, he could prevent universal collapse. Where others saw murder, he saw mathematics. Where others saw tyranny, he saw order. And this is what made Thanos so dangerous. He didn't act out of hatred. He acted out of conviction. He didn't want power. He wanted stability. He genuinely believed he was the only one willing to do what weak, sentimental leaders refused to do. Thanos saw himself not as a conqueror, but as a steward of life, a necessary force. A cosmic surgeon willing to perform the painful operation others were too afraid to consider. In his mind, he wasn't the villain, he was the cure. Thanos left Titan not as a broken exile, but as a man reborn with purpose. The universe was vast, chaotic, and full of civilizations blindly repeating Titan's mistakes. If no one would listen, he would make them listen. If no one would act, he would force action. His transformation didn't begin with violence, it began with observation. He studied dying planets, unstable governments, war-torn systems. Everywhere he looked, he saw the same pattern: overpopulation, greed, and leaders paralyzed by denial. Slowly, deliberately, he built an army. He offered lost warriors something they had never been given: order. He gave displaced species a mission. He forged alliances with some of the universe's most powerful beings, including those who preferred shadows to politics. And from this growing legion, Thanos shaped the Black Order. His elite generals, terrifying in their loyalty and precision. But his rise wasn't chaotic. It was engineered with the same cold logic that defined his philosophy. Every world he liberated or conquered became a stepping stone. Every victory solidified his belief. Every soldier he commanded strengthened the idea that the universe needed a guiding hand, his hand. The boy who once walked alone on Titan had become something else entirely. Not a tyrant, not yet, but a force gathering momentum, a conqueror with a purpose that would eventually shake the cosmos. As Thanos expanded his reach across the galaxy, he learned a truth far older and more powerful than any empire: the Infinity Stones. 6 primal fragments born from the Big Bang itself, each one holding a fundamental force of existence. Time, space, reality, power, mind, soul. Individually, they could reshape worlds. Together, they could rewrite destiny. When Thanos first discovered their history through ancient scrolls and cosmic archives, he understood something instantly. This was the only way to achieve universal balance without endless war. armies could only reach so far. Conquest required time, and time was the one resource the universe burned through fastest. But the stones, they offered something no strategy ever could: absolute efficiency, a single act, carried out in an instant, that could bring balance to every corner of existence. No starvation, no collapse, no prolonged suffering. To everyone else, the Infinity Stones were myths or weapons. To Thanos, they were salvation. And the only means to carry out the operation the cosmos was too blind to understand. His plan didn't come from ambition, but inevitability. The more he studied the stones, the more he believed they were calling to him. Not as tools, but as destiny. And so began his obsession, not with power, but with purpose. Even as Thanos pursued the stones, he needed an army capable of enforcing his vision. And in the ashes of conquered worlds, he found two children who would shape his legacy more than any general or weapon. Gamora, fierce and unbroken, even as her world collapsed. Nebula, wounded but determined, a survivor forged from the scraps of war. Thanos didn't see them as trophies, he saw them as potential. But his version of love was twisted, shaped by logic, not emotion. He raised them as warriors, not daughters. Gamora, he celebrated for her resilience. Nebula, he improved through brutal cybernetic enhancements whenever she fell short. With every loss, another piece of her was replaced, turning sisterly rivalry into lifelong agony. Thanos called it fairness. Nebula called it torment. In training, he pushed them beyond their limits. In combat, he demanded perfection. Yet in quiet moments, he spoke to them with a calm belief that he was preparing them for a universe that would not show mercy. To him, this was love, teaching them to survive the way Titan could not. But these relationships would become his greatest vulnerability. Gamora became the soul he could not control. Nebula became the reminder of what he destroyed. And in Infinity War, the weight of these choices would return, proving that even the mad Titan was not immune to the cost of his own purpose. Thanos' quest for the Infinity Stones was not a reckless rampage. It was a perfectly executed campaign, calculated with the precision of a man who believed he had no right to fail. His journey began in the shadows, orchestrating events from afar, supplying Loki with the Mind Stone, manipulating Ronan's hunger for power, studying the weaknesses of Earth's defenders. Every move was a test of the universe's resistance, and a measure of how quickly he would need to act. When the time came, he stepped onto the battlefield himself. He took the Power Stone from Xandar, crushing its defenses in a single sweep. He ripped the Space Stone from the remnants of Asgard's people. He claimed the Reality Stone by outmaneuvering the Collector. He traded strategy for sorrow when he sacrificed Gamora for the Soul Stone, a choice that proved his mission mattered more than his heart. He extracted the Mind Stone through pure force, shredding through Wakanda's front lines like a force of nature. And through it all, Thanos never saw himself as a villain. To him, the Avengers were obstacles, not enemies, guardians of a universe too afraid to face its own destiny. Every battle, every sacrifice, every stone brought him closer to the moment he believed would save existence. Not destruction, balance. And in the end, when he snaps his fingers and whispers, "I am inevitable," it isn't arrogance. It is the final statement of a man who saw himself not as conqueror, but as destiny. A universe built around one belief and reshaped by one impossible choice.